Those 3 children in Vakil's children in the house studying for their exams, terrorized, begging the officials, please wait till my mother comes, wait till my father comes. Why do you want to bulldoze our house? There were 128 demolitions of properties of Muslims affecting 617 families as a punishment. There are more than 17 million people today across India whose homes today are threatened by the bulldozers. How are you going to fund Social Security? How are you going to fund education? How are you going to fund the health system? How are you going to fund the panchayats? It's rather unusual for me to be here alone on the stage with no presidium or anything, but I heard that this is our speaker has come. Wonderful festival which you have organized, Speaker, sir. I think it's very unique to Kerala that on a working day we have so many young people in so many of the bookstalls buying books. I think that's a very unique feature that a government promotes the reading habit, because reading habits are the best antidote to fake news. So I think that's a wonderful contribution of the Kerala government and our speaker. So thank you very much for that. Dear friends, the topic for today's discussion is bulldozer politics and the Constitution of India. Now, this is rather a vast canvas. There are so many aspects of bulldozer politics. But today I'm going to take up 3 aspects of bulldozer politics and how it impacts the Constitution of India. The first aspect I intend to touch on is how bulldozer politics is actually attempting to bulldoze the basic structure of India and India's constitution in the assault on secularism and secular values. The second aspect is the way bulldozer politics is weakening quite severely the aspects of social and economic justice in our Constitution, particularly the role of corporates and the alliance of corporates and bulldozer politics is the second aspect. And the third aspect is also, again, the basic structure, parliamentary democracy, democratic rights, and how today we are faced with a situation where the basic structure of parliamentary democracy and democratic rights are under assault. So these are broadly the 3 aspects which I would like to touch on. But before I do, I want to share a story with you. It's a true story. It's about an individual named Vakil Hassan. Vakil Hassan, by profession, is what is called a rat miner. Now, that's a very strange term. What is a rat miner? So, a rat miner are those very skilled people who tunnel into the most difficult of terrains, small, narrow tunnels, which were used in the old days for the coal mines. And they use their hands and they use hand tools to tunnel into mountains and bring out what is required. Now that has been banned by the Green Tribunal. But it's a very low-paid, high-risk job. And Vakil Hassan is a leader of a team which does that work. And one day, last November, that is in 2023 November, he got a call to say, come immediately to Uttarakhand because the Silkyara tunnel, which was being built by a Telangana-based company, had collapsed and 41 workers had been trapped in that tunnel. Imagine, 41 workers. How do you get those workers out of the tunnel? So the government brought the best of machines. They imported experts. They brought a machine from Thailand, which was there, an Aura machine it's called. Everything was done. But the last lap could not be done because the debris was too thick and too solid, and the machine kept breaking down. 2 weeks passed. And then Vakil Hassan and his team were called there, and they went into that tunnel. And 24 hours they worked non-stop in a very small, less than 2 feet width tunnel. 24 hours using their hands, using hand tools, and after that, they cleared the pipe, they cleared the debris, and 41 workers were rescued by the rat miners. Now, these were heroes, but they were very soon forgotten. And on the contrary, what happened? Cut to the February of 2024. Imagine that you are in a colony in Delhi called the Sri Ram colony. One afternoon in the Sri Ram colony, when all the adults were out to work and the children were studying for the forthcoming exams in March, a bulldozer came into that colony. That is an unauthorized colony. There are thousands of houses in that colony. But this bulldozer stopped at the door of one particular house. And whose house was it? It was the house of Vakil and Shabana Hassan. It stopped at that house. It passed the house of Deepak. It passed the house of Ashok. It stopped at the house of Vakil. And within 20 minutes, those 3 children and Vakil's children in the house studying for their exams, terrorized, begging the officials, please wait till my mother comes, wait till my father comes. Why do you want to bulldoze our house? Their pleas met with a stern warning, leave this house in 5 minutes, otherwise what happens to you is not our responsibility. And within a matter of minutes, that house was demolished. By the time Vakil and Shabana came back, there was only rubble left of that house, which they had built through the hard work of Vakil and his wife. Now, why did that happen in the heart of the capital of Delhi? There was no notice given. An unauthorized colony, if one house was to be demolished, why not the other houses? What was the explanation? Since the elections were coming, Vakil had an advantage. So he met the lieutenant governor. He met the Bharatiya Janata Party MP of the area and told them, what happened? Why did this happen to me? And they said, it was a mistake. We will rectify that mistake. What was the mistake? The fact that he was a Muslim? What was the mistake? Why was it that Ashok and Deepak's house was not touched and Vakil's house was touched? What was the mistake? Was it the religious identity of the owner of the house that was a mistake? They promised alternative housing. Nothing happened. For 1 year, till today, there are no answers to Vakil, to Shabana, to his 3 children as to what happened. We are happy and proud that it was the red flag, and many of our friends in Kerala, including the Honorable Speaker, when he heard the story, we all together arranged the funds for Vakil, and today he does have an alternate residence, but the answer to why the bulldozer broke his house has still not been found. So bulldozer politics, when we look at it as a concept, we must not forget the individual tragedies, the individual stories, the suffering of families who become victims of bulldozer politics. The whole concept of bulldozer politics is a concept which has been framed in the political dictionary written by the double-engine governments of the BJP. In that dictionary, bulldozer politics has pride of place. The term originated from the use of the bulldozer, the JCB machine, by the UP government under the chief ministership of Yogi Adityanath, in which houses and properties of those accused of so-called anti-national acts were bulldozed. Soon after taking power in 2017, September, he issued a warning, and I quote, "My government will bulldoze houses of anyone even thinking of perpetuating crimes against women and weaker sections," unquote. So the appeal was to a popular concern. The appeal was made to a legitimate concern of people that the conviction rates of crimes against women, the accused in crimes against women, was so poor, and therefore using public anxiety and using public concern, this whole concept of bulldozer justice, in fact, the grossest injustice, was framed by a government, a double-engine government in power. This was a virtual war against the rights granted by the legal system of India, that an accused is considered innocent unless proven guilty. So here you have a government announcing a policy that we do not require to give you a notice, we do not require to get any orders of the court, we do not require to provide any evidence. If my police, which is under me and under my directions, if they accuse you of A, B, or C crime, then it must be correct and you will be punished by the demolition of your property. This is unheard of in our history. Unheard of. But this is what came to take place starting from 2017 in Uttar Pradesh, masquerading as action against to save women, masquerading as anti-mafia, anti-criminal, and who were the targets in the first place? Almost 100% of the first lot of targets happened to belong to the minority community. And the media, I don't know whether you will say Godi media or paid media or biased media or partisan media or bought-out media, I don't know how you want to describe it. But certainly I think it is a shameful chapter in our history of press freedom that these actions, fascist actions, were presented as being some great Sir Galahad type of gallantry against the mafia and against criminals. Imagine a chief minister who proudly is called Bulldozer Baba. You have a chief minister of a democratically elected government calling himself Bulldozer Baba. You have hordes of people with saffron flags riding bulldozers across cities of Uttar Pradesh, shouting slogans about bulldozing the houses of particular minority communities. And that was a reality in Uttar Pradesh. So what started in Uttar Pradesh, targeting a community, was then taken up in Madhya Pradesh. It was taken up by the Chief Minister of Madhya Pradesh. If Uttar Pradesh's Chief Minister called himself Baba Bulldozer, the Madhya Pradesh Chief Minister was called Mama Bulldozer. Mama in Hindi is brother of the mother. So Mama Bulldozer was another description, a self-description by two chief ministers, the Baba and the Mama, to bulldoze legal procedures in India. And there is a startling statistic that between April and June 2022, in 4 BJP-ruled states of Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, Assam and UP, and additionally in Delhi, where the police is under the central government, we have an AAP government in Delhi, but the police is directly under the Home Ministry of India, Mr. Amit Shah. In these 4 months or 3 months, there were 128 demolitions of properties of Muslims affecting 617 families as a punishment. It was declared as a punishment for so-called criminal acts. Now, I have seen it happening. When the bulldozer came to Jahangir Puri during the Ram Navami and the Eid celebrations, they coincided in the same week and on one occasion on the same day. And the Delhi police had actually banned processions. But what happened? After the namaz, after the prayers, the evening prayers, a procession of aggressive young men shouting the most provocative slogans, deliberately went into a minority-dominated basti of all poor people. These are not the Ambanis and Adanis of India. They are poor people living in the most appalling conditions. And it is they who were provoked. There was a clash. And as a result, the Bharatiya Janata Party's police, under their command, demolished a whole row of houses in Jahangir Puri, despite a stay order of the Supreme Court. You know that our comrades had been there, they had stopped it, and we managed to save quite a few. But the point is this, that the selective targeting for so-called vigilante justice, which is bulldozer injustice, became and has become an intrinsic policy of the BJP government across India. Recently, both in Maharashtra and in Haryana, we have seen a similar actions of the bulldozer. Now, what I want to put before you is, don't look at this, at least I believe that we should not look at this as individual acts of barbarism or injustice or cruelty. Of course it is. It's barbaric. It's unjust. It's cruel. It is all of that. But it's much more than that. What does it actually imply, and what is the reason for it? That is something we have to understand. According to the way things are playing out in India, I believe that this is an intrinsic part of a constitutional, of attack on a constitutional premise of identity. Who is an Indian? What is the identity of a citizen of India? How do we identify ourselves? The present project of bulldozer politics, if we look at it, and we look at the politics behind it, on this aspect, it is the attempt to build an overarching Hindutva identity in which there are two aspects. The first aspect being the attack on minorities, and the second aspect, an interpretation of Hindutva according to the RSS understanding of Hindutva. There are both these aspects. So when a house is demolished, when Vakil Hassan is sitting on the streets on dharna, whereas his neighbors who are not Muslim, are Hindu, are sitting in their homes in the same unregularized colony, what does it mean? You are building an identity. And this is, the bulldozer is the metaphor for the BJP RSS and those forces to build an overarching Hindutva identity, which is basically against the identity of an Indian citizen as mandated by the Constitution of India. So don't look at it just in terms of a barbaric act of injustice, which it is, but look at it in the context of a much wider, deeper agenda of changing the cultural identity that we consider ourselves as Indians. I want to say in this context that unlike our neighbors, we have a constitution which is very, very specific. If you look at the Pakistan Constitution or the preamble to the Pakistan Constitution, it says, quote, "Whereas sovereignty over the entire universe belongs to Almighty Allah alone, and the authority to be exercised by the people of Pakistan are within the limits prescribed by Him and is a sacred trust." So here you have a constitution in which they have a parliamentary democracy, they say, but whatever the institutions are, it is in the name of the Almighty. Our constitution, in contrast, states, quote, "We the people of India," not we the people of this or that belief, or this or that belief in this or that religious text. No. Our constitution is very clear. It is we, the people of India. We, all the people of India, all of us, the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, social, secular, democratic republic, etc. So, these two constitutions, one in the name of God, the other in the name of the people. Now, when this constitution was adopted, as we all know, in 1950, it was never accepted by the RSS. The RSS always said, right in 1950 itself, in an article published in The Organizer and later spoken about by the RSS Pracharaks, that they would have preferred the Manusmriti because the Constitution of India, according to them, was not Bharatiya enough. But what I want to point out to you today, that if we consider bulldozer politics as an attack on the Constitution, our Prime Minister, our Home Minister, all leaders of governments throughout India take an oath on the Constitution of India. But today, as it happens, most of the members of the cabinet belong to an organization called the RSS. And the RSS has its own oath. When any citizen joins the RSS, they have to take an oath. And what does that oath of the RSS state? I will read it out to you. In the name of Almighty God and our ancestors, I hereby vow that I have become a member of the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh in order to protect our sacred Hindu dharma, Hindu culture, and Hindu society, and to achieve the all-round development of the Hindu nation. I will do the Sangh's work sincerely, with a selfless mind and with all my body, heart, and wealth. I will observe this vow all my life. Now, members of the Cabinet of India and the Government of India have thus taken two oaths. One oath is the oath they took as members of the RSS. And the second, when they were sworn in as ministers, they took an oath on the Constitution of India. And as I have presented before you today, there is not only a stark contrast between these two oaths, which is not just of academic interest, my dear friends, but has a direct bearing on policies of the government, on practices of the government, and an ideology of the government, which is supposed to be according to the Constitution of India. So there's a conflict of interest. The question we have to ask today, and this is a question to the Prime Minister, to the Home Minister, and to senior leaders of the government who have taken the oath of the RSS. To which oath are you faithful? You cannot be faithful to both, because they are conflicting oaths. One oath is to the people of India. The other oath is to the believers of a particular faith. So how do you resolve that conflict? And do you resolve it at all? Or is it the cause and the core of the aspect of bulldozer politics that today it is precisely because the oath on the Constitution is not paramount, it is the oath to an extraneous organization which is paramount, which gives rise to the whole concept of bulldozer politics. This is a real, I won't say dilemma, but this is a deep contradiction which is affecting the everyday lives of people and policy, because if your idea is to implement the RSS oath, then a logical consequence of that will be the demolition of Vakil Hassan's house and others like him. So this is a thought I would like to leave with you. The conflict between these two oaths, the reflection of that conflict in the policies of the government, the reflection of that in the kind of laws which have been adopted by many of the double-engine governments, laws which seem to very clearly militate against the issues of secularism by targeting particular communities. And another issue which I have raised with you is that when we talk about an overarching Hindutva identity, the large majority of Indians are believers, are Hindu believers, and they believe in the philosophies, in the tenets of Hinduism. And that belief is a belief between the individual and the path that he or she wants to follow. And there are so many paths within those beliefs. There are so many different cultures within the richness of our philosophy and our religion that so many different practitioners have shown us in the course of our history. But today, is it not a fact that a particular interpretation of what is religion, a particular interpretation and the prominence given to certain texts is a kind of bulldozer against the pluralistic cultures and ways of belief of those who believe in the majority religion in India, which is Hinduism? This is a very serious question. What is this whole debate, for example, on the caste system? And what we are finding today is the use of caste and the creation of sub-caste identities while maintaining the toxic caste framework. Ambedkar had fought for the elimination of caste. Ambedkar had never fought for the pride of a particular caste identity within caste hierarchies. But today, what do we find? Those in power who not only have compromised with caste politics, but have promoted a new type of caste politics, that you retain your caste, you retain your caste heroes, you build subcaste identities, but birth-based descent and hierarchies will continue untouched. This is what is happening today in India. This is what is happening in Indian politics today. And therefore, this compromise with the caste system, this promotion of the caste system, this defense of the caste system in the name of Sanatan Dharma is something which is deeply troubling to a country which has valued social reform. Without social reform, where would women be today? Without social reform, how would we have fought back the most toxic forms of untouchability? And they still remain, though maybe in different forms. But statistics show that the working of the caste system in India, co-opted by modern techniques, is as toxic as it ever was. The RSS has never believed in social reform. At every stage of social reform, it has blocked it. And we have seen, in the name of religion, there are fundamentalist forces in different religions who hold the same view. We have seen, right here in India, how in the name of Islam, we have extreme fundamentalist forces who fight every type of reform within the community, which large sections within the community would like. These forces, whether it is the communal forces or whether it is certain sections within minority communities who stand as barriers to social reform, my dear friends, they strengthen each other. We should not hesitate in our efforts when we stop the building of an overarching Hindutva identity to defend secular values. We would be weakening our struggle. We would be compromising our basic principles if for a moment, for narrow political reasons or otherwise, we compromised with any type of fundamentalism which is against social reform, regardless of the religion they claim to represent. So in a way, when we talk about this movement driving the bulldozer of changing the identity of India and Indians into a very narrow sectarian interpretation of what the Hindu religion is according to the RSS. And we have a counter of forces in other beliefs who are also promoting sectarian identities. Taken together, these weaken the fabric of secular India and must be opposed. So, bulldozer politics, as practiced by the BJP, must be opposed on the basis of secular values which cannot compromise with any type of religious fundamentalism, regardless of the name it may take. All this happened in the last several years, but it was accompanied by so many laws. I'm not going to go into all those laws. You know all those laws, anti-jihad, love jihad laws, the anti-cow slaughter laws, the anti... Even now, the Assam Chief Minister has come up with a new experiment saying that no Hindus can buy land from Muslims and no Muslims can buy land from Hindus. I've never heard of such a law when the Chief Minister says, unless I give the permission, nobody can do this. I mean, what is happening here? I can understand land is protected of Adivasis in India under the 5th and 6th schedule, under PESA. Adivasi land is being snatched away from them. I can understand the Assam Chief Minister saying, I will not allow Adivasi land to be snatched. But here he is saying a land sale between two citizens of India is banned in the state of Assam. So where are we going with this kind of an approach and this kind of politics? So this is the first aspect I wanted to talk about. The second aspect, of course, in this is that when the BJP was so blatantly violating the law, the Supreme Court and other courts who are supposed to be the guardians of justice, unfortunately, they stood as spectators when the bulldozer was rampaging, perhaps except for one or two exceptions where they gave a stay order. But in general, the courts did not intervene. So you have a situation in India where the rule of law is broken and the courts do nothing. When did the court intervene? The court intervened when the bulldozer moved to other areas. When the bulldozer moved, once it was established that the bulldozer is a legitimate weapon to promote government policy, who is safe from that? So then the second stage was in the name of beautification. The slums of the poor, the shanty towns in so many cities, the bulldozer moved to them. It was at that time that the Supreme Court, on November 13, 2024, after so much damage had been inflicted on India's poor through the use of the bulldozer, it was then that the Supreme Court intervened and declared an end to the bulldozer, saying that the demolition of houses was extreme, disproportionate, opposed to constitutional ethos, a reminder of a lawless, ruthless state of affairs. The demolition of houses as a means of inflicting punishment is against the Constitution of India. It's a very good judgment, but it's only a partial judgment. When Vakil went to his lawyer, he was so happy, Vakil. He called me up that day and said, Comrade, abhi to mera ghar ban jayega. That was a year and a half after his house had been demolished. He was so happy. But when he went to his lawyer said, no, I'm sorry. The court has not given any compensation. Even in a case like yours, where the court has specifically mentioned that especially when one house out of a row of houses is demolished, it is targeting, even in such cases, there was no compensation given. So he is still waiting for that. His case is pending, but anyway. So this brings me to the second aspect of bulldozer politics, which is, it's not only anti-minority, but it's much more than that. In the name of beautification, of course we heard it during the emergency also, stopping encroachments. According to an estimate by the Housing and Lands Rights Network, the year-wise breakdown of people affected by forcible evictions, that is, without notice evictions, or with a one-day notice eviction or a two-day notice eviction. There were 1.07 lakh demolished in 2019, 2.20 lakhs in 2022, and 5.15 lakhs in 2023. 59% of these evictions were in the name of clearing illegal encroachments, beautification, and smart city initiatives. According to the data, the most affected social communities were Muslims at 43%, tribal communities 23%, and SCs and OBCs 22%. There are more than 17 million people today across India whose homes today are threatened by the bulldozer. 17 million people. So you start off by legitimizing the bulldozer as a weapon, saying it's going to be against this particular community. And once you have gained the legitimacy for that, you change the direction of the bulldozer to all poor people, and you help corporates and real estate, big-time guys, to take over valuable land by removing the poor without notice, without legal procedures, and without even assessing the value of that property to that individual family and how much they would have worked and slaved to build that house of theirs. So the shift or the expansion is the method of fascists all over the world. You begin by targeting a community, you get legitimacy by others who are not part of that community believing that this perhaps is required, and then you expand your target to protect the real interests you are there to protect, and that is the interests of the rich and the propertied. There are umpteen examples of how big business houses have captured property in cities. It's well known. The bulldozer will never go there, my dear friends. So, there is today in India a corporate code, and there is today in India the labor code. And it is the corporate code which the bulldozer protects. And it is the labor code which the bulldozer imposes. Can you imagine, my dear friends, that today the principles of economic and social justice in India have been so completely bulldozed by the policies of this government that today India is one of the most unequal societies in the world. If you just look at the recent figures which have come, that is, the total number of billionaires in India has reached a new high, that is dollar billionaires, not rupee billionaires, dollar billionaires. A new high, 271, with 94 new billionaires added in 2023 alone. That is more new billionaires than in any other country in the world except the United States of America. So how does that happen? It happens because of a set of policies. It happens because of an economic framework. It happens because this government is prepared to bulldoze the principles of economic and social justice in the Constitution of India. That is not to say that before the BJP regime, India was a very equal country. Not at all. We have been capitalist, and we have encouraged capitalism in its most aggressive forms under the reign of various governments. That is not my argument at all. What my argument is that this set of policies which is being pursued by the Bharatiya Janata Party's government at the center and in the states is so nakedly and blatantly pro-corporate, and there is such a quid pro quo between corporates and the present government, an alliance of corporates with Hindutva. That is what it translates into. The most respected, I would say respected in commas, in quote unquote, faces of industry in India making a line and paying obeisance to the Nagpur headquarters. You have seen that. Top industrialists. What does it mean? Doesn't it remind you of what happened in Nazi Germany? What was the anchor? Apart from the culture and the cultural framework which was promoted then, what was the anchor? The anchor was the capitulation of big business to the Nazi project. Here it is not capitulation. Here it is connivance. Here it is support. Here it is 12,000 crore rupees in electoral bonds. Here it is huge financial backing to this Hindutva agenda. So the corporate Hindutva alliance, which is a very key aspect of bulldozer politics, is bulldozing the rights of the people of India. Look at what is happening in Kerala today. I'm not being partisan if I say that the rights of the people of Kerala are being snatched away by the central government, and Kerala is being punished because it is developed. Kerala is being punished because you have a basic income which is higher than the rest of India. Kerala is being punished because you have an education system which is educating people. Kerala is being punished because you are trying to have a social security system. And how is it being punished? Simply by bulldozing the federal structure of India, the rights of the states, the autonomy of the states. You think about it. Just think of this. Several years ago, at the time of the 10th Finance Commission, as a right, as a constitutional right of the entire pool of resources from the center to the states, you were getting something like 3.8%. Today, when the pool has increased, what are you getting? In the 14th Finance Commission, you got 2.5%. Today, that has been further cut to 1.9%. And what is the reason? In the meetings which are held in Delhi, when your representatives ask, why are we being discriminated? They say, but you are a developed state, you don't require funds. You are a developed state because the state government is providing those funds, investing. But if those funds are cut, how are you going to fund social security? How are you going to fund education? How are you going to fund the health system? How are you going to fund the panchayats? How are you going to fund the special schemes for SCs and STs? So the present situation of bulldozer politics as far as finances is concerned, subsidies to the corporates, that is a corporate code. Privatize, privatize, privatize. Secondly, protect the profits. Tell them they don't have to give back bank loans. They are going to be written off, lakhs and crores of rupees of bank loans written off for big corporates. That is the corporate code. And what is a code for the states? If you are part of what we want as our policy, if you accept our conditions, you will get the money, otherwise you will not. Now, how long can this go on for? These are very, very critical issues for India. A federal, pluralistic, diverse nation is being sought to be imprisoned in a unitary, centralized framework. And that affects finances, it affects development, and affects the rights of the people. So this pro-corporate agenda, this bulldozer, which is in the financial sphere, is something which I think is being underestimated generally in the fight to save the Constitution of India. There's another point I want to bring to your notice, and that is, I think my 1 hour is over. Yes? And that is the attack on democracy, which is a part of these bulldozing policies. Because if you have democracy, if you allow dissent, if you allow people to express their opinions, that is not going to enable the bulldozer, it is going to stop the bulldozer. And therefore, in India today, we have a very, very serious situation where basic democratic rights of the people are sought to be curbed, when the media is sought to be reined in, where journalists are arrested under UAPA, when UAP and PMLA, black laws, PMLA was supposed to be a law against corruption, it's now become a law for washing, like a washing machine. You use the law to coerce people into joining you. If they join you, they are fine. The latest figures of 23 opposition leaders, including a chief minister and a deputy chief minister, who are now chief minister and deputy chief minister, who were with the opposition, who had cases against them, serious cases, 25 opposition leaders. As soon as they switched sides, 23 of them found all their cases were withdrawn. So this is a kind of blatant manipulation of democracy also, which is going on. And the bulldozing of democracy is showing up in many global indexes. The Freedom of the Press Index, the Democracy Index, the Fake News Index, in which India is the #1 country in the world in the manufacturing of fake news. So taken together, I saw a map of the world projected by the source was the Economic Forum and the World Economic Forum, and I saw a map of India, of the world with different colors, and red was the color in which the highest risk of fake news, and guess which country was in red? Our country. Red for the wrong reasons. Red for the reason of not our red, but red for the reason of fake news. So I would say that the bulldozer is a bulldozer against the Constitution of India. It stands today at the gate of Parliament. It stands today at the Supreme Court. It stands today at the gates of every autonomous institution. And I think it is up to us, the citizens of India, the people of India, to not only identify the bulldozer as a metaphor for the bulldozing of the Constitution of India, but in identifying it, we express our resistance to it, our united resistance to it, and prevent the bulldozer from destroying our beloved country and the values that we all believe in. Thank you very much, and I would once again thank the Speaker for giving me this opportunity. Thank you to all of you, your patience for hearing me out. Thank you.